like 8 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday night. I just think they're shite.
Good evening, welcome to Mangard Rovers Game Week 10 review. My name's Sean, and as ever, I'm joined with Nathan and Phil. Evening, chaps, how are you
Hello.
doing?
Very
Well,
good. Very good.
I still hope you both had a great weekend. Lots to get through. Let's get straight into it then, Brighton Leeds. Brighton won 3-0, pretty convincing in the end. Nathan, you had it 1 apiece. Nil point. Gonna take us through it?
Yeah, so this was one of the games I actually probably did see the most of over the weekend. My brother-in-law went to the game. His honest opinion was they just got beat by the better team. And I think it was the case. I think Leeds played well in spells, but you've got to be critical. You've got to take your chances, haven't you? You've got to have when your moments get up there. When you're away at, say, a team like Brighton, an established Premier League team, when you do get your moments, it's about capitalising on them. I don't think they have the biggest focal point. I know Calvert-Lewin has tons of Premier League experience, but he's not that guy, is he? He's not that guy that's going to get you 15 goals a season at the minute. I know he had that little spell with Everton before, but he just doesn't look like that focal point that Leeds are crying out for. But saying that, they played well in parts. I think Okafor did really well against one of the fullbacks, but Brighton were just clinical. Danny Welbeck again. I mean, we've been talking about him. 34-year-old. He's just absolutely. He's putting some of the Premier League strikers to shame, if I'm honest.
Had a great season, yeah.
Good. So, a thoroughly deserved win for Leeds. For Brighton against Leeds. I thought that Leeds probably would have got a result there, but how wrong was I? So yeah, Leeds will have to, sound like Steve Bruce here, dust themselves off and go again. And it's a really good win for Brighton, isn't it? At home, it's job done, and they move on to the next one. So yeah.
Phil, you had it down as Brighton 3-1. I had it as 3-2. So you were close.
We were both
You see
close.
much of it?
Just the highlights, really. To be fair, it broadly played out kind of, I think, how we said last week. Brighton, we've said time and again so far, when they create chances in the matches they've lost, they've created chances in the matches they've won. And I think, broadly speaking, so far, when they've come up against slightly more average defences, they've taken more goals. They've taken their chance. They've scored more goals. Like Nathan said, Leeds created some chances in patches, but it never really looked convincing in terms of what they were creating. And I think Brighton just did take their chances, and created plenty of them as well. It was a good week to dump Danny Welbeck into my fantasy football. I'll give you that. But although it didn't necessarily work because João Pedro scored anyway. But there you go. So Brighton. Like I said, they seem at the minute in a strange way to play exactly the same when they win or lose. It seems more based on the opposition, whether or not they actually win or lose. They're creating lots of chances. They do give chances away. And yeah, at the minute, the sort of deciding factor on whether Brighton win or not seems to be the opposition. But just more Premiership experience told, I think, and yeah, they were more clinical in their chances. And broadly speaking, like you said, Sean, the sort of result me and you expected, really.
Yeah. Just a special mention. I think it was it the second goal for Brighton? Was it the dummy that sort of literally took the defenders, like he's in no man's land? It's a great dummy. I mean, I think it was Rutter, who used to play for Leeds. So he draws the defender out, and then I think the lad who they signed from that MLS team, he banged it in. But yeah, that was a decent goal. That, to be fair,
it was.
Yeah.
So they looked good. They did look good. But they look good in matches they've lost as well. So it's consistent. I would think.
Yeah, they are looking pretty consistent. Do we still think Leeds are going to be okay this season?
Yeah, I would say so. Based on some of the football from the other teams, I'd say they'd be okay. But there is still a long way to go. It is really difficult to try and predict. I know we've done our predictions. We're wrong, and we keep saying it. But there's such a long way to go. There is time for teams to start putting runs together. But if you're asking me here and now, do I think Leeds will be all right? The answer is yes. I think they will be.
Do we still think Arsenal are going to be all right for the title? Are you comfortable win for yourselves still? You also predicted the score correct. You got 4 points for that one. So why don't you?
Come on, my boys.
Why don't you digest that one for us? And 2-0.
Just a totally professional performance from end to end, wasn't it? Gyökeres had an unbelievable 45 minutes. He looked, got his goal and really starting to look he's ticking and looking like a really complete striker as a focal point of an attack for everyone to play off him. Wonderful pass by him through to the corner for Trossard for Declan Rice's goal. Just obviously worrying he limped off at half time, or he's come off at half time, so we don't necessarily know the full extent of that as yet. But yeah, again, stunning defensive display. I think no shots on target again. Another clean sheet, 7 in a row at that point in time. And yeah, just did again broadly what I talked about last week. Really expected Arsenal to go up there and just do a professional job, and it was really, what I mean. It's the 3:00 kickoff, so I ended up watching it on BBC updates on my phone. But yeah, as soon as that first goal went in, you just like, you know what, you just feel comfortable. Arsenal in a very different position this season, where previous seasons it had been biting nails and worried all the way through to 90 minutes, and even then at 2-0 you'd be concerned of a late sort of crazy defensive mishap, and now as soon as you get that goal update saying the first one's gone in, you know what, that pretty much feels like job done at 15 minutes, the match gone. And probably played out that way. Just a really professional performance from a team that's absolutely ticking them. And in terms of title talk, it's just crazy at this point in time. Do you know what I mean? We're 10 games in. We're just about a quarter of the season gone. It's mental, and I keep saying that. A few people said it to me last week or so, and I keep saying to people, do you all remember 2 years ago, Postecoglou's first season at Tottenham, when they'd won like 10 out of 10 or 9 out of the first 10, and everyone was banging on about Tottenham were going to walk the league, and it was all over, and everyone's going, hang on a minute, it's Tottenham and it's only 10 games in. Well, do you know what I mean? We're in an unbelievable moment. We are in a great position, and obviously Liverpool, Man City, you're going to face each other at the weekend, so we're in a fantastic position. We're doing what we can do, but we need to do it for another 28 games at this point. So am I confident? Well, I don't see any reason why we can't do it. I think, but yeah, just a thoroughly professional performance, and one that was really, really a really peaceful Saturday as an Arsenal fan, to be honest. So really enjoyed it.
Turning on to the Arsenal seems to be a bit of a theme at the minute, right? Nathan, you had it 1-0. Do you want to touch on anything in that game?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Phil's saying. I think it was a very professional performance. Burnley's a tough place to go, whether you're top of the league or not. So to see the result out 2-0, I think if you'd have offered that any Arsenal, keep a clean sheet and get 2 goals, you'd have offered any Arsenal fan would have bit your hand off for that. 100%. So I think it was very convincing, wasn't it? I think Burnley, again, maybe huffed and puffed a little bit, but they just didn't have enough. I mean, we spoke about it for the last few weeks. Arsenal defence is mega at the minute. It's going to take something special to turn Arsenal over at the minute. It's going to be a really good performance, and you've got to be, up front. You've got to give, the defenders credit for Arsenal, but they just don't look like conceding. It's absolutely fantastic if you're an Arsenal fan. So it's a job done. It's what I would say now is with Arteta is, the last couple of seasons they've been the sort of the hunters. Now they're the hunted. So it's a territory now that Arteta's got to get himself familiar with. But at this minute in time, and I'm with Phil, and I've said it earlier, there's still a long way to go. Arsenal fans ain't going to be ready getting the champagne out just yet, because a lot can happen. But as it stands at the minute, Arsenal, the only thing that would concern me, and we spoke about this off air, is like the injuries. They just have to be really careful, because I do think Arsenal have the best squad and one of the best squad depths at the minute. But while your players or your squad players are getting injured, it is a slight concern. It's just having the momentum and sort of the sustainability to carry on getting results, especially when you go into teams that are better than Burnley. But as for that result, it's a job well done. Arsenal fans are happy, and why wouldn't you be? Absolutely buzzing. I mean, they've got a really good result. Not this thing, but champions again tonight, didn't concede again, so they are flying high at the minute. So, but for Burnley, I still think Burnley, out of the 3 promoted teams, are probably the one that struggle the most. I don't know with them, if I'm being honest, about them staying up. I think that they will be in a relegation fight, in my opinion. They do have decent players, but let's see where they are. Let's see what results they get in the next couple of weeks. So, but yeah, good result for Arsenal.
When you say injuries, just for the fantasy football, who's currently or who's newly available for Arsenal?
So at the minute, it's starting to rack up a bit, to be honest. So I think we're live, aren't we? So everyone knows we're on a Tuesday night here. So we've got Zubamendi, who took a knock at the weekend. Gyökeres took a knock at the weekend. They came off. Martinelli's injured as of last week. We've just finished the Champions League game, which has gone really well. Other than had a couple of knocks, Trossard limped off and after a bit of a collision. So hopefully that's just a bit of a muscular one. But it's difficult, isn't it, when you've got, we talked before about, like Nathan said, the strength in depth. You've got, Havertz, Jesus, Odegaard, Madueke already all out injured. And like you
It's
say,
a
it's
lot
great
of
having the
players,
strength.
isn't it, Phil? It's a lot of players because, like
It is.
I've said, they've got the best squad in my opinion at the minute, but you've only got the best squad while they're fit.
Yeah. And at the minute, it's something where really this coming weekend's game is going to be huge. We need to get through that with these injuries, and then obviously there's a 2 week or week and a half off for the international break. So we've got a massive week back after that, but I think getting players back in that international break is going to be big for us. But yeah, so as I say, we've got Zubamendi, Gyökeres, potentially Trossard from tonight, all additional injuries on top of what we already had. So some big players in there because Zubamendi's had an unbelievable start to his time in the Premier League, and obviously crucial around that as well as keeping Declan Rice fit at the minute, because I think if anything happened to him, again, it'd be a massive problem at the minute with all the other injuries that are racked up around it. So it's it's just one of those where it's just starting to get a bit kind of like, well, I'd rather not test the strength in depth quite as much as we're about to do. But we shall see. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting for me now with Arsenal is, and I'm not wishing a defeat on you guys at all, but like if it did happen, if you did lose the game, what would the reaction be? That's what I want to see. Like, I don't want to see, but I'd be interested to
You've got to
see
score
how
against
that
them
happens.
first.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, how many shots on target we faced this season? It's ridiculous.
I think if you look at it now, I think, as I say, we're recording this on Tuesday night, aren't we? So we've had 2 shots on target in the last 5 games. One tonight, there was a deflection off a defender, and one against Crystal Palace, I think. So, even getting a shot on target is an achievement at the moment against this defence. But I think we've got to keep that bit going. Do you know what I mean? And for all we've got all those injuries up front, we haven't got many, if any, injuries in the defensive line. So I think, whilst it's important to not draw too many games, but as long as we've got that defence, we've always got to hope, especially with, we all know it, the way the set pieces are going. As long as we get up there and get a set piece, we've always got a chance of nicking the game. So
yeah,
it's not a massive concern. And to be honest, it's one of those where you get into a point just makes you smile now with opposition fans getting pissed off about set pieces. To be fair, it's crack on. It's
indeed. Well, Palace were 2-0 winners at Brentford. Nathan, you had that 2 apiece. You see much of the game? You see the highlights?
So I thought, to be fair, with how well Brentford have been playing the last few weeks, that they probably should have gone and give themselves a better account. But obviously, pretty comfortable for Palace, wasn't it? So, if you're Palace, it's a game that you're looking at where you think that you should win. Obviously, Mateta's back in the goals again, and then it's an own goal that obviously gets them the result.
Collins.
So, yeah, it's. Like I said, I think if you're Brentford, you probably you're going into that in a bit of confidence, aren't you? Thinking I know Selhurst Park is a tough place to go, and they've got a very good team, Palace. I know that better than anyone. Now, how many times have we been turned over by them?
Yeah.
But Mateta's back in. He's a very good striker, isn't he? He's a focal point up front. Something I know we just mentioned earlier, a bit what Leeds are lacking. Someone like a Mateta who's big, strong, who will get you goals, not just someone who's big and strong. So, Palace, they're doing exactly what I thought they'd be doing this season. They'd be winning games, losing the odd one, but still doing consistently quite well. So because they have got a very good team. So yeah, if you're Brentford, you are disappointed that you've gone there and lost. But yeah, I predicted a 2-2, so I was a bit off with that one, wasn't I? So
You and me both. I also had it I had 1-1 draw for that one, so I was wrong. Phil, you had it 1-0 Palace.
No, close. Yeah, I just thought that they're 2 really solid teams this year. But I just think I said at the time, I think Palace at home, you've got the X factor of Mateta, and kind of you've got the solidity of Guehi at the back, who kind of seems on a one-man mission to be trying to inflate his transfer fee only after he missed out on his deadline day's move. He's just immense again at the back, and he's really making a case for what a great defender he is. But Mateta got his goal, and like I say, it kind of panned out as I say I thought it would, really, where Palace just have too much at home. Like I said, while Brentford are well drilled, Palace are also really well drilled. I just always thought Palace had that little bit more X factor to break open a deadlock, and that's kind of how it turned out to be, really. So, like I say, I think Brentford it doesn't change Brentford's solid start to the season, how well he's done in terms of getting them organised and drilled, but they are looking at team performances and stuff like that, whereas they probably don't have those individuals who can just find that spark. And Palace, I always thought Palace would be drilled enough to kind of block a system. There are some teams that you just look at, you go, you're going to play a system against it, you're going to struggle to score, you're going to need that kind of moment of brilliance from someone to break it.
Yeah.
And I just thought Brentford would struggle with that, and they did. So, yeah, straightforwardish for Palace, really.
Fulham, comfortable winners at Wolves, 3-0. Nathan, you had it 2-0.
Yeah. Well, where we go.
I
This
think
was
we all knew. Well, yeah. There's a few other
think
things after this.
Yeah, we'll start with Fulham. Fulham have been on a really poor run. I think they hadn't won in 3 or 4 games, so it's a game they'd be looking at this going, we need to win this, and they did, and they turned over Wolves, didn't they? Wolves again, they just don't look like they can get a win. They can't get performance together. Obviously, ultimately, it's cost the manager his job. I've said this, on our WhatsApp group, and I read the stat is 45 days ago they give him a new 3-year deal, which is just absolute madness. It just shows you the absolute mess that is happening at Wolverhampton Wanderers at the minute. You've got Gary O'Neill in advanced talks, then turning the job down at the last minute. Then you're being linked. And that's to do with assurances or whatever. So the guy who runs this club or the management structure at Wolves at the minute is toxic, and obviously it was plain to see. I think the fans, Wolves fans, have had enough. But I'm not sure the management who they're looking at are going to be I don't think anyone can save them at the minute. I think even someone as experienced like Brendan Rodgers coming in, I don't think that's the answer. But I think is it Edwards from Middlesbrough who's been, he's got strong links to Wolves, potentially wants the job, but are you bringing in a manager knowing that you need to do a rebuilding process for the Championship next season? Because I called it 2 weeks ago. Wolves will not stay up. They will not stay up because I think they just cannot win. And it's one of them where where when you're playing as poorly as you are, it's so hard to get out of a rut. Maybe a new manager will give them a little bit of a lease of life, but as it stands, I just can't see it. But for Fulham, it was a win that they needed to do. So they look at that as comfortable 3-0. So, like I said, we all predicted Wolves to lose. That's what happened. Not really much more to add on that from myself, to be fair.
Phil, do you wanna add to that?
What did I get for score? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong?
You had it down as 2-1.
Oh, I give Wolves too much credit. Yeah, I think a lot of everything Nathan says is nail on the head, isn't it? Like they're a club that's pretty much in chaos. They've sold really good players, they've replaced them with not really good players. They've now got rid of their manager. But I think at the end of the day, you're looking into that match, and we all said we thought that Fulham, Fulham have been putting some good performances in whilst they've had a pretty poor run of results, whereas Wolves haven't had any performances and haven't had any results. So you kind of always felt Fulham were going to, particularly at home, were going to have more than enough to beat Wolves. But I think then Wolves, if you're going to drop a hand grenade in your own changing room, then what do you want to do? You've that first goal is just a poor piece of defending to get caught on the ball and lose a goal like that. Then just stupidity in terms of going down to 10 men in the first half. Then you manage to pull out an own goal towards the back end of the game as well. If you're gonna implode, that's the way to do it, isn't it? It was just absolutely calamitous again. And if you want to try and find a way to make it worse, when you don't think it can get worse, they managed to find a way. So just awful from Wolves. And Fulham did what they needed to do, which is turn up and put in another solid performance. And that was always gonna be enough to overturn this Wolves team. But the other team only has to turn up, do their job, and play a solid game. And they'll take the points off Wolves. And that's what happened again. So Wolves are in massive, massive trouble. You can't see, they're already 4 points adrift at the bottom of the table. And to be honest, I don't think there's any coming back from it really, because I think the relegated to the conversation we've already had. I think the relegation strap at the minute is probably between the 4 teams above them. I would have thought you got Leeds, Burnley, West Ham, and Nottingham Forest, and at the minute you can't see how Wolves close that.
We'll get onto it in a bit, but obviously West Ham had a result, so that's, you don't want to be seeing it as a Wolves fan. You don't want to see your rivals that are down there in the bottom 3 winning.
No, but I think that the way you'd be really, really worried as a Wolves fan is, well, if you're worried anyway, but you like we said earlier in this chat, you can see potential for Burnley, potential for Leeds. You've already seen the ship starting, the West Ham and the Nottingham Forest ship starting to turn with Dyche and Nuno going in there. You just don't see anything at Wolves that makes you think they can turn it around. Like there's just nothing. There's not performances. There's not fight. There's not organisation. You just can't see where inspiration's coming from. And now you've got a decent manager like Gary O'Neill, who from what I read, it might have been assurances as well. Maybe what I read was that it partly was due to the fan backlash and they didn't want him back. Well, your club's in a pretty shit state. You should be glad to have anybody back. But
who wants that job? Who, like I was saying, like Brendan Rodgers, a good manager, but even if he takes it, I don't think he saves them. They haven't got the money to. They haven't got the money to spend in January because they spent over £100 million in the transfer window in the summer. But the problem is they spent it on the wrong players. They didn't bring, not like because replacing Cunha, but they haven't done like what Sunderland or they found these little hidden gems who are performing. They haven't done that, and it's plain to see on the pitch. They just don't look at when you haven't won a game in your first 10. To me, it's embarrassing.
Twice now, but they did the same last season, didn't they?
It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing.
They're in big trouble.
Big trouble. They are in trouble. They are in trouble. Well, yeah, I guess we'll see what they do next week. But there's nothing new happening for us. I don't think it's going to be all the way through the season. It's going to be like that. Forest Man United finished 2-apiece. Phil, you had that 2-1 for Man United. Close again, but no score. No points. You see much of it?
Yeah, I think just a bit of for me as well. Really, I've got maybe I let my fantasy football heart rule my head there, and I was hoping and Blemmo would get me some more points, and he had a little bit of a flat match at the weekend. But I think just probably a little bit of reality check for Man United. Like we've everything we're living through at the minute on the Premier League. Every single week, someone's finding a massive story about something, and I think at times we've all got to sit back and go, I know we've got this podcast, and there are plenty of others out there who are looking at information and stuff, and everyone's looking for that big story every week. And the big story was Man United are back. I remember Man United fans, did you see the last couple of weeks going, we're going to challenge for the title.
League,
just like I think we said on this, you're a bunch of wallies. Get back in your box. You're rebuilding. Like Man United are nowhere near the top 5 teams in this country. You could argue they're nowhere near the top 8 teams in this country. So, they are in the process of rebuilding. They've bought a couple of really good strikers, and they've got, they're what would the phrase be? We're not sounding too negative about that. They're just a solid cup team. They can beat anybody on their day, but they can't put 38 decent performances together, and that's where Man United are right now, right here. And that's kind of what the weekend showed, really. You conceding 2 goals in virtually no minutes to Forest, and really you're lucky, to come back to a draw. We say about, I think I said before about Brentford not having that X factor. Man United probably the opposite. They've got no structure. They've got no consistency as a team, but what they have got is some really, really, really talented individuals who can score at the drop of a hat. And you saw that with Ahmad's goal at the weekend. It was a wonderful strike to bring him back, but you're relying on a wonder strike to get you back into a game for 2-2 again. And yet you're claiming you're back to challenge for the Premier League. It's just nonsense. They should do better because we like this week now that all the I know they said that all the good teams are playing in Europe, but that's probably the true statement. All the good teams are playing in Europe, so they've got the extra week on the training ground. They've got the chance to put the work in to have a good result at the weekend and have no excuse about being tired. But just a bit of a reality check from really this season is about rebuilding. What they need to do this season, you get back in Europe. And I don't mean Champions League. I just mean Europe. That's got to be their aim, to try and be in Europe and check really. And Forest, Dyche has got them organised. We all knew, anybody who knows anything about anything in football knows that Sean Dyche can organise, monkeys to defend if he had to. He knows how to make teams defend and be solid. You're already starting to see some of that, like I said, that ship turning for Forest. Chris Wood scored a goal, which is nice to see him back on the score sheet after his season last season. Who knows? Again, Dyche had him at Burnley, didn't he? So he knows him well. He knows how he plays. He knows how to get the best out of him. Good signs if you're a Forest fan. Like I say, a bit of a reality check, you're a Man United fan, but also still seeing some of those flashes of brilliance. Cunha was awful. Which is a Man United fan, you kind of go, well, we still scored 2 goals with our new star forward player being crap. So that was a good sign for him. But yeah, just two mid-table teams playing out a mid-table game, I would say. That's where I'd be at with it from without trying to get the the clickbait from all the raging United fans. But I think that the reality is that's where Forest and Man United are. And I know Forest are at the bottom of the table at the minute in terms of position of the table. But you look at what they did last season, you'd expect Daesh to drag them up the table. Within 10 or 15 games, you'd expect to see Forest comfortably, in that sort of 14th to 9th bracket. But I'm allowing for the fact that miles behind, they've got to claw some points back there. But Forest will have too much to go down, I would think, if the players play anything like last season. So, yeah, just a mid-table draw, really.
Nathan, do you want to touch on that one? You had it as 2-1.
Yeah, so obviously, you just seen it's a bit of a reality check, like what Phil says, for the Man United fans. I think the disappointing thing is obviously going 1-0 at half time, whether you agree with the goal should have stood or not. A bit controversial, I believe, the Casemiro one. But, you're 1-0 up and then 2 quick fire goals you're conceding, like within a minute or 2 minutes of one another. And that's a sucker punch, isn't it? So, so when you get to that stage there is like, if you can't win the game, don't lose it. And I suppose, obviously, that's what Man United done. So you've seen a great goal from Diallo to level it up. Daesh, probably where I expected, seeing a reaction. Don't think Daesh is the long-term answer for Forest if they have ambitions of being a club challenging for Europe every season, if I'm being honest. Daesh does what most sort of managers that are called in at some stages, just to get you stabilised, get your team organised, and just get you some results. So, and that's what he's doing. So, but again, time will tell. We'll see where we are. But to Phil's point, to say that Man United are back, we're doing this. It's not that. They're better than what they were last season so far. But let's not get carried away. You've got to do it. Sustainability. You've got to, like Phil said, you've got to do it over 38 games. It's no good doing it over 5 or 6. So, but like I said, it's two teams. It's where I thought.
Really, couldn't it? To be fair.
Yeah, it's entertaining game for the neutral. If you say that. So, but yeah,
we could watch a match
that's all I can really. Yeah.
Yeah. 5:30, we had Spurs at home to Chelsea. It finished 1-0 Chelsea. Phil, you had it as 2-2. You see much of that one?
I saw enough to know that Spurs are shite, honestly, and I say that with all allowance for the badge behind me. Like, fundamentally, Spurs simply proving me that Spurs once more. I mean, what an apps! I mean, I like Thomas Frank. Like I said to you, this season is a real heart wrencher for me. Between I really like Thomas Frank, and then I recognise that Spurs are what they are, and it's just awful. Genuinely awful. I think I read somewhere, I'm sure it was the lowest XG of any team in any professional division in this country for the season. Like, just absolute crap. And how the game wasn't, closer to a rugby score for Chelsea is beyond me. They overran them, they outfought them, they outpassed them. They created more chances. They were just, I mean, Chelsea. The thing that would worry you as a Chelsea fan is, to Nathan's point for Leeds, is about taking your chances. Like, how Chelsea missed so many chances, in itself is a miracle. I mean, Chelsea should have been at least 3 or 4 in that game. In the end, João Pedro gets back on the score sheet. His first time he scored in 8 games. It's difficult for me the week I ship him out of fantasy football, but at least I replaced him with a striker who scored. But yeah, Chelsea absolutely dominant. We're back to this Jekyll and Hyde Chelsea thing, aren't we? I think Chelsea, we touched on before. The big issue with that young squad is they can get up for the big matches, and Tottenham is a big London derby. They got up for it. They were far superior. But next week, if they play a lower down team, you wouldn't be surprised to see them put in another shoddy performance because they can't get themselves up for it. And that's a real challenge for Maresca, is how he gets up to Nathan, what we said about Man United. How do they get that consistency in there? Because they're clearly good enough. And some of that will come with age, some of that will come with experience, you imagine. But at the minute, they're just showing key points in time that kind of lack of experience and lack of maturity. But far too much for Tottenham. They were on song. They clearly wanted the game, and Tottenham just they're dismal home form. And that's the thing. Again, as a Tottenham fan at the minute, you'd be like, why is it we can play well away from home, but we're shit at home? Like, they're really good away from home. They look like he's got them exactly where you'd want to be away from home, but at home they just can't seem to do it. And Tottenham were just shoddy as you like. But good result for Chelsea. Important to win London derbies. There's so many for those of us who have teams in London, there's so many derbies to play. It's important to get yourself up for them. And Chelsea, yeah, what is it the Chelsea fans call it? 3-point lane. I mean, yeah, just easy peasy for them. And yeah, if you're a Spurs fan, you should be very unhappy. Although, to be fair, we're filming this on Tuesday night, and you should be quite happy at the minute because you're 2-0 up, despite the fact Brendan Johnson just got himself sent off.
Oh,
So
nice.
shitty discipline. So we'll see how they get on in the last 40 minutes of that game. But yeah, Tottenham were awful. Chelsea were good. Pretty much the story of that game, really. 1-0 is a complete lie as to how that game went.
Nathan, you had it 2-1. Do you want to add to anything onto that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember the exact stat, but I think it's been a while since Spurs have actually beat Chelsea at home, which is, it's not good enough, is it? If Tottenham this season, I get that they're in a rebuilding process with Thomas Frank, very good manager on with Phil on that. I really do like what he's doing. I don't think some of the players are helping him though. I mean, when we played them, when we beat them, we were 1-0 down after 5 minutes and then come back and won. And it was the same story there. Some of the players they're not good enough, but they're on big contracts, they're on big money, and they're just not performing. So it's incredibly frustrating if you're a Tottenham fan because, again, it's the consistency, and we're talking about this with your Man United, with a lot of teams. Chelsea to where if you add consistency to your game, you see yourself challenging for trophies, for places in Europe, cup runs, whatever. And they look good one week and then rubbish the next, and it must be incredibly frustrating. But Chelsea, to the point, again, they were brilliant, but they've got the one goal to show for it, and that's probably the most frustrating thing if you're a Chelsea fan, because you want them to go and have that. You want them to have the consistency, but you want them to be ruthless as well, don't you? You want them to add more goals, but it's a solid performance from Chelsea. They'll take the points. I'll say the same of what I've just said about Spurs. Chelsea, incredibly inconsistent. They can get themselves up to Phil's point again. They can get themselves up for the big games, but then get turned over at home by Sunderland, and that's the issue for Chelsea at the minute. They have to be more consistent, but they have a very good squad, a very good young squad, and it's a result that Chelsea will look at now and try and push on with. But as a Spurs fan, you just really, really. I think there were a lot of them were. It wasn't toxic, but they're really annoyed that the way that the team played on Saturday. So,
it's going down without a fight that pisses you off as a fan, isn't it? It's look, watching your team not put up a fight. That's what pisses you off as a fan, and that's what
we can all accept that. I've seen Villa lose games that we should have won, but you've gone, at least the performance is there. And I think as the same as a Tottenham fan, you're going, just show a bit of spirit. Just this is a London derby. Get yourself up for it.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that frustrates you if you're a Spurs fan.
A couple of players that stormed straight past Thomas Frank on the way down to the tunnel full time as well. What's all that about?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, to be fair. Like, it was blatant as well. You can see, and I get that you're a bit pissed off at the performance, but you're out there with the fans and stuff, and at least go and give the fans a clap, and at least acknowledge the manager, because I believe.
It's look, isn't it?
Yeah, and if I'm Thomas Frank, then I'm getting him in and go, you do that again.
To be fair, I think he said he was interviewed yesterday, wasn't he? In his pre-match for this,
they apologised.
He said they came to him and apologised. So yeah, but to be fair to them, they've obviously realised they've made a mistake and they've come back in. But you're right,
it's
a bad look in the moment for unity, isn't it? And together,
if you don't deal with that, and I mean, you're only hearing what Thomas Frank's telling you. I will put a bet on that he dragged them into the office on Monday morning and gone, tell you what, lads, you do that again, you see what happens. Don't undermine me. I'm in charge here, not you. And then that's when he's probably gone, well, they did come and say sorry, but it had dealt with it himself. I'm not a big fan of it, to be fair. You're professional players. Stop acting like babies. Yes, I understand that but if the manager acknowledges you, at least acknowledge him. Do you know what I mean? Especially when it's in the public space for everyone to see and the cameras to pick up.
Yeah, it's disrespectful, isn't it? It is disrespectful. Well, Nathan, 2-0 loss to Liverpool.
So this
predicted one for me, draw, yeah.
Yeah. The thing that really, really disappoints me as a Villa fan, year upon year, one, we do have a really shit record at Anfield. I mean, it was the same score last year on the same sort of on a Saturday 8 o'clock kickoff, because I was there last year. And it was the same thing again. we can't seem to go to the so-called bigger teams and seem to pick up results. We crumble. And we don't help ourselves. That pass from Martinez to Salaries, it's embarrassing.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
And that, Martinez, for me, one of the best goalkeepers I've ever seen at Villa. But as good as you are, you start doing stuff like that. You just, it's so frustrating. And we deserve to get beat. But, we have this knack, Villa. And I've said this before. I've been a Villa fan long enough to know what happens. When we're in form, we should not expect to get a result, but we should put in a performance and maybe get something out of a game. Team who's bang out of form, bang, result against us. It's the same as a striker. Striker in score for 20 games. Lo and behold, you can bet your bottom dollar against Villa he bangs a goal, because that's what Villa do. So it's something that I think Unai Emery's saying, obviously, he's disappointed because obviously we played it from the back. We hit the post early on, Morgan Rogers. I think is that a different game? I don't know, but I think a lot of Villa fans probably would have seen, that performance, or we have that sort of performance in our locker not to turn up, and that's the frustrating thing, especially as we've been on such a good run. But we have to move on. We have to move on to Thursday, big game in the Europa League, and then obviously we've got Bournemouth at home on Sunday. So I'm very disappointed the fact that we couldn't give Liverpool more, because they've been on a bad run. I know they're a fantastic team, Liverpool. I mean, at the minute, as we speak, they're 1-0 up against Real Madrid. So, but if you're Liverpool, it's a game you're looking at Villa. You've picked yourself back up after a bit of a barren spell, especially with Arsenal being as consistent as what you are. Liverpool have got to start getting more consistent and putting the results together, and not. They can't go through another spell like this for the rest of the season, because that will literally be them out of the title race. They're probably just about in it at the minute, to be fair. So, but yeah, Villa fan, incredibly disappointed with the performance, but a Liverpool fan, we got back on track, and that's the story. So,
how important was that win for Liverpool, Phil?
Yeah, massive. Obviously, four losses on the spin is appalling for any team. But to say, and I still, I consistently say, I still think there's a huge gap between Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, and the rest of the division. I think, and I think for the reason that you said, Nathan, that the overall across the 38 games, you expect those three teams to be far more, just whoever you support, I think in general, you expect those three teams to be more consistent than any of the rest over the season. And, to see Liverpool drop 4 games in a row, bizarre. As much as I've enjoyed it from an Arsenal point of view, just bizarre from a footballing point of view for a team that's so good. And those Liverpool fans who've been, or semi-fans who've been calling for Arne Slot's head, you just kind of go, you just get some freaking loyalty. Remember what he did last season and give him a chance, would you? But no, it was hugely important for Liverpool. I think they look a completely different team. They played 2 proper fullbacks at last, in Bradley and Robertson, and they looked far better for it. They looked much better in midfield. Obviously, allowed to actually put Szoboszlai back in the midfield, and getting Gravenberch back is huge for them. It's a bit like their version of Rodri. I know he's not Rodri, but he makes them tick like Rodri makes Man City tick. And that freed up the attacking players to be more attacking. I think one thing I would say to Nate's point about Villa, I just think they got it all wrong. And I think one of the problems for Villa and Newcastle's and Chelsea's, I suppose, and Tottenham to a degree against those top 3, is you're a little bit caught in that world of do you stick or twist? So do you acknowledge that those 3 teams are better than you and end up playing a more defensive game and try and hit on the counter-attack? Or do you try and go toe-to-toe and think you can... And I think Villa's problem was they tried to go toe-to-toe, but Liverpool's press was far better because they had better fullbacks, more defensive fullbacks, because they had Gravenberch back in the midfield. Liverpool's press was far and away the best press they've had all season. And they just caught Villa out time and time again, trying to play out from the back. And most Martinez doesn't help himself, but Liverpool's press caught Villa out over and again. And you would have thought, for all, Emery's done a great job in arresting the poor start to the season that Villa had, and they've looked much more like themselves over the past 4 or 5 games. I think an element of
performance. That's
I think an element of just being too proud to acknowledge that Liverpool were the better team, and even if he'd changed it at half time and gone, right, we're going to sit deeper and we're going to try and hit on the counter attack, because with Morgan Rogers and players like that, you've got the players to hit on the counter, and Marlon's come off the bench. You've got the speed. So I think it was just It seemed a bit stubborn from Emery because they were clearly they weren't able to beat the Liverpool press. And I think he probably should have seen that sooner. But massive result for Liverpool to arrest that slide. Exactly what they needed. Like Nate says, I know they're ahead of Madrid now. Whether they will be at the end of the game, I don't know. But they're playing really, certainly from what I saw before we came on air, they're playing really, really well. It's a massive game at the weekend. Liverpool, Man City. Clearly, they can't both win. So it is huge for both of them, and neither of them will want. Obviously, City lost the weekend before last. Liverpool have obviously got that win against Villa. Neither of them want to drop that momentum going into the international break. But massive win for them. But I think if you're Villa, you're just looking at going, we just played right into their hands. And I think that
we made it easy for Liverpool.
We
made it easy.
And thing, isn't it? You want to make it tough for them, like you said earlier about. You feel if you'd come away and gone on your performance, it was kind of coin toss. It could have gone either, but it didn't. Liverpool dominated that game, and that's what upset you as a Villa fan, in it. Like that you've seen second best.
Watkins, I'm Ollie Watkins' biggest fan, but his stats this season are horrendous. He's played well in some. He's played well in tiny fragments of games. Morgan Rogers the same, to be fair, and that's where we're struggling at the minute, because whereas they were sort of very consistent last, that's really hard. I think we have to. I know we're a little bit away from it now, but we have to go out in January. We have to bring another striker in, because we need competition for Watkins. We need, like, before we sold John Durrani, you knew if he come on, something was going to happen, whether he gets sent off or whether he'd bang a 25-yard. But we don't have that at the minute. We've got Daniel Marlin, who I don't class as a striker. I class him as a winger, and we're bringing him on in place of Watkins, and it's not working. So if Plan A is not working, Plan B is probably not much better for Villa at the minute, and that's what we need. I know we've got Yuri Tielemans out injured at the minute.
Buendia's a miss as well, isn't
he? Buendia's a miss as well. But we need something. We need a signing that's going to put that spark back into sort of the front line and give them a bit of a lift, because they don't have that at the minute. Whilst the goals have been shared around the team, which is good in elements, but you want that focal point. You want your Ollie Watkins to be like your Erling Haaland, or you want him to be like your Gyökeres, or anyone where get a chance to score. And he just doesn't look confident at the minute. He's at a, and how long before Emery will say, that's it, I'm going to start Marlon over here? Is that what Watkins needs? I genuinely don't know. So, but yeah, we have to move on, and we have to move on quickly. We have to try and get a result in the Europa League Thursday. And I said, Bournemouth at home on isn't going to be an easy game.
No, it isn't.
Another one that we need to move on from is West Ham beating our boys 3-1. We all backed Newcastle to win. And you know what? We were wrong. We were really wrong. We were terrible.
Where did it go wrong then, Sean?
I think we scored an early goal, but I'll tell you something, if that Bowen shot hits the post, if that goes in, they'd have beat us 4-5-0.
I've seen that, but I did actually see him at the post, and I thought it was a great move by West Ham.
Hit the post, and we very scored. I think when we went 1-0 up, obviously, and then that rate, we'd won the game. And just didn't look interested. Really didn't look interested.
A bit carried away with yourselves, thinking 1-0 up, it's going to be easy.
Doing nothing. There were no link-up play. There weren't even. There were times I was screaming for a runner, because there was no movement. There was just nothing. We were flat. Offered nothing going forward. Gordon again, hit and miss. You were there. He wasn't. It's just really inconsistent from him. A bit worried. Apparently, he's nursing a hip injury, so that'd be interesting. But Eddie did try to change it at half time. He made a triple substitution at half time. But yeah, West Ham you saw a bit of Nuno back. West Ham playing football again. You saw a little bit of Forest from last year in the way he'd set up and played. And
he put the young lad into midfield, didn't he?
He had a great game. He
played really well. That was a big call, wasn't it? But sometimes when you're down there, you've got to make a big call, and it's one of them, Sean, isn't it? I mean, I didn't see it coming, but if you're a West Ham fan, it's a win that you desperately
massive
needed.
Win for West Ham, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
And I'm not saying that they're going to win the league now, but if you're Nuno and you're West Ham now, you're looking at the next game and going, right, can we sort of put that same sort of effort in? But
it was nice to hear a bit.
Seeing Newcastle so porous, I mean, obviously not Arsenal, but we've talked a few times on these podcasts, haven't we, about how solid Newcastle have looked at the back and how they've built, at least when they've not been scoring goals, they've had that solidity at the back. So to see them concede 3, against a team who, regardless of structure, you look at the West Ham team, they're not exactly dripping in goals, are they? Was difficult. What was different? But I mean, at what point do you start to consider from a Newcastle point of view? So I'm just looking at the table, 12 points from 10 games. I mean, it's not exactly great return, is it? For considering we thought there'd be a Champions League push this season. And I get the table's quite congested and one win can bounce up a fair way, but it's not. It's really been quite a poor start, hasn't it? To be honest,
Yeah.
I know you've had Liverpool and Arsenal in there, but I don't think you've not played City, have you? No. So
consistency, isn't it? We've said this with a lot of teams, same as Villa, same as Newcastle. That's the reason why where we are in the table at the minute, because you're not consistent enough. You can't win one and then lose the next week. It's putting that run together, isn't it? So
it's strange, isn't it? From one of the things we thought about from a Villa point of view was, had you signed enough strength in depth to carry on where you were last season? But it certainly seemed like we've. I know there was a lot of false dawns for Newcastle in the transfer window, but when you actually look at the finalised transfer business, Newcastle actually seemed to have quite a good window. So and I know Wissa's injured, he's coming back and whatever, but the performances just seem really off compared to how last season went. Let's face it, last season you finished 5th. You're in the Champions League. You're just thinking that 12 points returned from 10 games really isn't good enough for a team
it's not
that
where you see yourself
in the Champions League and wants to be competing to get back in the Champions League. Like, it's not good. I just can't. I don't. It doesn't feel from a third party distance. It doesn't feel like Newcastle had a really bad start to the season. But when you look at the table, it looks bloody awful. Like 13th, it looks horrendous for where you want to be. At what point does is it injuries? Is it Eddie Howe getting it wrong? Is it just performances? Like, what do you think it is?
Right, yes, our away form shocking, isn't it? I mean, I don't think we've won now for nearly. I can't remember if it's right 5 months now. We haven't won away.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Home, we're fine at home. We always put performance in, but yeah, it just seems a little bit like the aggression's gone out of the team. Like we're normally a bit shithousery, aren't we? We're not to rile
But
things
you
up a
haven't
little
lost.
bit.
You've lost Isak, but you've still had that bite. You've got that bite with Joe Linton and Tonali and everyone else. So what's changed? Like I said, it's a hard question to answer because it's like Villa. I can pinpoint as to why I think we're not playing well, and maybe you can, but ultimately, what it comes down to is that you go into teams like West Ham where you should be getting results and you're not. Is
I
it a
think
confidence thing that you ain't? Is it you can't win away?
it's getting the rotation right. I think making sure that you're rotating players in at the right times. And I think there's a little bit of that going on. Eddie trying to find his
You paid
best way of
55
rotating.
million quid for Elanga, and he can't. He's not starting, is he? He's
Oh,
playing Murphy. I don't know Murphy scored, but you're looking at that going, well, you've got a 55 million pound sort of winger here, or by rights, who had arguably one of Forest's best players last season, not having the effects on games when he comes on. You signed Ramsey from us. I know he's been injured, but when he has
He's
played,
looking all right. He's not
he's not
looking
looked
too
anything
bad.
special. As he looked okay, but he's not gone.
It's not
That's
lighting
the
up. No.
Ramsey. Yeah.
He's no Tonali, there's no Bruno yet, but he's in there as a rotation player, and like I say, we're competing obviously in Champions League. That's obviously intense. Then we've got the cup games. Obviously, we're into the latter stages of the Carabao Cup now as well. Yeah, I just think it's a mix of a couple of
Is
injuries,
Eddie
couple of
doing that
niggles.
though, Sean? Is Eddie looking at the cup competitions and going, well, actually, if we go far in them, can we accept a lower league finish?
Possibly.
Is that where he's thinking at the minute, or
The further you go in Champions League, the more revenue you're going to bring in, aren't you, automatically? The same with
yeah?
Carabao Cup. Winning another Carabao Cup is probably more revenue in there than finishing fifth or sixth. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm not worried for him just yet. I think there's still a fair few games to go before he's under any massive pressure. I think the club come out and backed him recently. We're just flat away, really flat
I
away.
just think for where you want to be, it looks. You're coming into what we're coming into now. Like, all right, we'll get Saturday's games out of the way, but you're going to be into late November, and at the minute, I mean, I know you got to play on Saturday, but the fact that you've lost more games than you've won, It's not a great look in November, that is it? For someone who for a team that want to be in Champions League, like, that is worrying. Like when there's no real clear thing you put your finger on as to why. Do you know what I mean? Like if you could say, "Oh, it was that." Do you know what I mean? We had a couple of key injuries. That's what our problem is. We've got through that. Or if you'd have had Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, City, Liverpool, you kind of go, do you know what? Fair enough. That's a really horrific run of games. I know you've had Liverpool and Arsenal in there. And like you say, if your away form's poor, it doesn't help to have lost those 2 games at home against two of the best 3 teams in the country. But yeah, it just seems weird seeing Newcastle that far down the table when like I say, we've talked so often about how solid you've seemed in defence and maybe it's just fine margins. You take those that if you hang on against Liverpool and you hang on against Arsenal, and I suppose you're on 16 points and you sat sort of 5th or 6th, aren't you? So
Yeah.
Like
I say, a long way to go. Yeah, I'm still not. I don't think he's under any massive pressure just yet. But
what is a good season for Newcastle?
7th, 6th, 7th, late into Champions League.
So you'd be happy with that?
I'd be okay with it.
Just wondered, that was all.
We all
had Newcastle up in I think the Europa League spots or Champions League spots in our predictions, didn't we?
Carabao. If we win Carabao Cup again and finish in the last stages of the Champions League and grab a Europa League place, I'll be happy as Newcastle. Yeah, I think that you've got to be realistic as well, haven't you? Well, yeah, he's got to start winning. He's got to start winning games, hasn't he? First and foremost.
For all, so I agree that you've got 3/4 of the season left, but I think 10 games in, you start to go right. You start to get a feeling, don't you? Like what does a decent season feel like at this point in time now? Because we're a quarter of the season behind us. So you're right. You need to be realistic and kind of. That's for me. That's what sort of saying. What would you be happy with at this point in time? Like if you click your fingers and the season's ending tomorrow, right now, what would you be happy with? So that's fair comment, and I guess we'll see. I think it'll be a long shot to retain the Carabao Cup. It looks like a lot of the big teams are taking it seriously, doesn't it? But
I said to them, it's like it'd be Newcastle Arsenal final.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Maybe. I think
we'll see. We'll see.
We will. I'll be happy if we get that far. But, yeah.
What score did you guys have? So yeah, we all had Newcastle for a win.
Newcastle win, didn't we?
Nathan, you had 2-1, and Phil, you had 2-0 Newcastle, 3-0 Newcastle. So anything you guys want to touch on in regards to that before we move on?
No, I think I've said what we need to on that one. To be fair,
Newcastle are the new Spurs.
Yeah, cheers for that. Nice one. Moving on, Man City 3-1 winners at Bournemouth. Nathan, you had 2-1. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so it was another one of these, wasn't it? Erling Haaland again. Monster. What an animal. He's such a joy to watch when he's in form, because I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law on Sunday. He just, when he goes through, I mean, I give the exception against Villa last week when we kept him quiet, which obviously I'm pleased about. But when he's going through, I've not seen many strikers, in the last few years look as confident. He just looks, as soon as he goes through, he just looks like he's always going to score. And that it's such a joy to watch. It's one of those where you look at Man City, though. We've touched on this a few times, and I'll sort of nick one of Phil's lines. Erling Haaland right now, he's dragging Man City into a title race. He's making sure that they're obviously nowhere near Arsenal at the minute, but they're in a distance of enough to be classed as in a title race, and that's the thing that Pep probably would have probably accepted a few weeks back, as long as we're there or thereabouts, because we know what City are capable of going on runs after Christmas. But they did get on the score sheet with another scorer, so obviously O'Reilly scored. They conceded again, though, didn't they? That's the thing. So I know they won the game, but they go 1-0 up, and then they concede again. The worry for me as a Man City fan is that defence. We've said it before. They look like they will ship goals, and Bournemouth. The Bournemouth should probably go in there thinking
probably a bit closer than the score reflects. To be fair,
yeah, probably was, but I see it time and time again. Like you give Haaland an inch, he takes a mile. He's gone, and I think when you watch the balls through, the defenders, they can see what's happening, but because he's that good, they can't stop it. So if you're a Bournemouth fan, you're disappointed because you get it back to 1-1. You think, can we reset it? And then obviously 5-6 minutes later, you go behind again. And then, you probably go searching for a goal. And then, you get hit with the third. So then, we all predicted Man City to win. But Bournemouth, they're a very good team, Bournemouth, aren't they? Where the Premier League table as it stands at the minute, the fifth, and, you probably, you're overachieving if you're Bournemouth. But, Man City, for me, are in the title race only thanks to one person, in my opinion. They have to get better of distributing the goals. And, and like I said, if you give Haaland any space, like what the Bournemouth defenders did,
he'll absolutely punish you.
He's going to punish you. So it's a good win for City. Obviously they're disappointed they couldn't beat Villa last week. To get back on track, it's what Pep wanted. So yeah, professional performance to get the job done. So, but for Bournemouth, you're probably a bit disappointed that you probably didn't get a result, or like you said, the scoreline probably doesn't suggest it was as one-sided as what the scoreline suggests. So, but Bournemouth obviously got Villa. I hope they don't beat us, but they'll be going on to that. It's two tough away games, and it's away to Man City and away at Villa. So let's see how they come out of this.
Phil, you had it as 2-2.
Yeah, Bournemouth are a bit disappointing, really. I think City put in a really good performance. They looked really on it. I think that both Liverpool and City played as if they had to win. You know what I mean? We talk about the title races. No, we're 10 games in, but they both played with that kind of head on, as if Arsenal have got the win early. We've got to win. You've got to keep on their coattails, sort of thing. And they both looked. The press looked really, really good. I still think, like Nathan said, City look a bit weak at the back. Donnarumma, for someone who's like, the size of Goliath, he was so weak on that Bournemouth goal. I get the fact there's a little hole in his arm, but the guy lets go before he jumps, and he's just let it get in his head. And I think he needs to get that European mentality out of his head and realise he's in Premier League. But Haaland looked great. You like Nathan said, you give him a sniff and he's all over. He's what everybody wants from a number 9, and and I think that the noticeable thing this year is he's working harder. He seems to care more this year. Now, whether that's because last season dented his pride, or he's just sat down and off the back of that, and as Man City as a whole have gone, look, we don't want to feel like that again. But he's definitely more involved in the build-up plays, more involved in dropping deep and helping out with the defence. So he's looking much more of a complete player this season, and is really why he's standing, not just physically, but just completely head and shoulders above everybody.
He's a country mile above everyone, isn't he, at the minute?
He is, and he looked phenomenal. He really did. So it's just City far too strong. But I think it was, as a neutral watching the match, I did, it was a little bit of a disappointing display from Bournemouth, because I thought they'd show more. But Haaland was devastating, and City were just really on it. Doku and Foden looked great as well. They looked much more. I mean, Doku's looked great all season, but Foden looked much more like he was completely, like we'd spun the clock back a couple of years, and it was prime Phil Foden, which is ridiculous because he's only 24. So how can you have prime Phil Foden? Do you know what I mean? But he was looking far more like he was, what is his recent peak. City looked really, really impressive, and like I say, again, both played like they want momentum going into that game next weekend. That game next weekend is absolutely huge. Neither of those two teams wants to go into international break on a loss, and neither of those two teams wants to go into international break dropping further behind Arsenal, which is why it's such a huge game for Arsenal at the weekend, regardless of injuries, to get the win. But no, really, really solid, dominant performance from Manchester City, and like I say, just a little bit disappointed from Bournemouth. But again, if you're Bournemouth, you're not judging your season on losing to Man City. You're not. Bournemouth are having an amazing start as a season, and they're going to do great things this year for a club of their size, and I wouldn't expect that to change. So, but great, yeah, Man City looked really, really good, really dangerous.
We had some Monday Night Football. We had Sunderland hosting Everton. 4 points for me. I got this one right, one apiece. Nathan, you had it 2 apiece. Any thoughts? You watch it?
Yes. So I think it was quite an entertaining game, to be fair. I think contender for miss of the season, wasn't there, for Timo Barry? So, but Ndai's goal is really good. It's a great goal. I think the frustrating thing is Everton probably should have been a more than 1-0 up at half time. And they get with the sucker punch, don't you? 46 seconds into the second half. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating as a manager or as watching. We've seen our teams either score or concede in sort of the first couple of minutes of the second half, and it's so frustrating because you're just switching off, aren't you? Granit Xhaka. I mean, he was good at Arsenal, but I think he's just having a whole different dimension to that Sunderland team. I think they're not where they are without him, Granit Xhaka, because it's that sort of midfield stalwart, the experience you've got in the middle that some teams need. You see it a little bit with Brentford with Jordan Henderson. Some teams thrive off having an experienced player. He's been around, the big leagues. He's played for big teams as Xhaka. And, if the crazy stat about that is if Sunderland would have won that game, they'd have gone second. It's absolutely bonkers because, no, I'm telling you, I don't even think the most sort of optimistic Sunderland fan would have had them sort of in the dizzy heights of like the Champions League spots come after 10 games. There's no way you could have thought that, but it's for the neutral. It's interesting to see, isn't it? So they get the goal back, and then I think there's the handball. Is it Tarkowski that's it's not given out? To me, I thought it was a penalty. I thought it was. So you're looking at that, but again, it's one of those Everton. The where I thought they should have been under Moyes this season. I don't think that they're not in any trouble, but I don't see him setting the world on fire. Like they're just solid, a bit like a Dutch team, if I'm honest. They're just solid. So, but they're all right. But I'll maintain it while ever you've got like Grealish and Dive. They're not at the races. Everton are not the team that they are, and they'll be very much. Not easy to beat, but I think that if they're not on form, Everton struggle, in my opinion. So, but if you're a Sunderland fan, again, it's absolutely bonkers that they've only lost 2 games this season, and they've won half the games. So, for a promoted team, I don't think you can ask much better.
No,
So.
And fair play to them as well, because they're playing really well. Grant Xhaka looks like a man possessed. His quality is what a piece of business to bring him in and his experience. I mean, you all know Phil obviously spent a lot of time with you guys, but yeah, did you see much of it, Phil, last night?
Yeah, I watched the game last night. It was an enjoyable match. Nice to have Monday Night Football back and a bit of time to watch it without having to look at you folks. But no, it was an enjoyable game. I think. Sunderland did great to come back into it. Like you say, Everton probably not. They didn't have 1 or 2 more goals on the board. I think the Tarkowski thing for me was a penalty. I think he got away with one there. I'd also think that Grealish was really disappointing. He didn't look like he was particularly up for that match, which was disappointing. Really, like he wasn't. When he ran with the ball, he wasn't running with a particular directness towards goal or with particular purpose, and certainly towards the end of the match, there's a few times I thought he could have gone into the box, like covering the back post when crosses coming through the side and stuff, and he was just floating around sort of 25 yards out, not really getting his head down again. So he just looked a bit off it, and I think that Barry doesn't convince you that he's gonna finish a chance when he gets it. And Beto, it was hard for Beto, I think, in the second half because it was so much Sunderland in the second half. What's that classic game of 2 halves, isn't it? Like it was all Everton in the first half, it was all Sunderland in the second, and Xhaka gets a bit lucky with that deflection for his goal, but he ran the show. Well and truly deserved man of the match. It was a real captain's performance. Like Nathan says, I think without Xhaka, Sunderland aren't where they are in the league. But I think really good signs from Sunderland again. In terms of ability to recovery, and we've talked about them keeping the stadium alight as a fortress. And whilst they might not have got the win, getting the draw when you're coming back from behind is important to show that fighting spirit. And to be honest, as the game went on, there only really looked like one winner. It only looked like a Sunderland. I think at one point they put a graphic up on Sky. I think there were like 9 of the preceding 10 shots had all been Sunderland. Do you know what I mean? It was one-way traffic in that second half. So you'd be happy if you're a Sunderland fan. They've showed a really good performance, and they've again not lost and not lost at the Stadium of Light, which is great. You probably, as an Everton fan, wouldn't be too devastated with a point when you look at how Sunderland have started the season. You're away from home on a Monday night, but I think both teams, when you actually look at the tactical detail, will feel they should have won it. I think there was a chance for Isidore where he certainly should hit the target, or met Pickford work a hell of a lot harder, and he just snatches at it and just sort of bobbled it into his hands. And obviously the Barry chance for Everton. So I think actually when you look at the match, both teams are probably disappointed not to win it. But it was a good match between, again, two teams who probably overall look like they're going to have more than enough to be safe in the division over the season. So it was definitely a good match for the Premier League, because no one was sat in, no one was sat deep. But they were both trying to score. But yeah, it was a good game.
What a good game, yeah. Right, so updated scores then. Phil, you're still leading on 70 points. I'm in second on 60. You're on 70 points. 4th week now you've been leading. Nathan, 56 points in 3rd. Bit of a poor week for yourself there with 5 points.
I missed a week though, so that's my excuse.
Oh, get off.
So I could have easily got at least 10 points on that week I missed.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's still close. It's still a long way to go. Next week's predictions could who knows? So guys, if you're liking what we're doing and you want to get on board with our predictions, there'll be another show going up this weekend. So make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell. But quickly before we go, I just want to touch on a few things on the fantasy football. It's getting really tight at the top. I'm a little bit clear. I'm 33 points clear, but everyone's catching quickly, and it's really tight from second.
You played your bench boost though, didn't you?
I did. I gambled on it. It
didn't work. I have had it flagged to me on at least 3 occasions already this week by Mrs. Sarah Dewhurst that she outscored you without any boost of any kind, and she still outscored you.
She did. She scored a fat 91 points.
And to make Nathan's point, I think she signed 4th. She signed 4th.
Sat in 5th.
Fifth.
Well, yeah, 5th, yeah.
But to Nathan's point, she missed a week at the start, didn't she?
She missed a week, and she's flying up the table. I was looking at her squad yesterday. She's absolutely flying up the table.
It's outrageous.
I think if it wasn't for Danny with Bruno Tanares, I think she got a couple of points for Xhaka. I think she would have been sat 4th. But yeah, great effort. A week missed and climbing up that table, chasing everybody down. Nathan, what's going on with yours, man?
I'm holding everybody up, aren't I? So I need to have a little bit of a look at that. It's one of those, isn't it, with the fantasy football, is we sort of try and go off form off players, and then the inconsistency of the players, apart from Haaland and some of the Arsenal boys, some of the players are just very inconsistent. Whereas one week they're having a good game, like Grealish looked amazing. Now he's looking a bit average. Pedro, Phil said, and scored for 8 games. And I think that's the reason why a lot of, there's just, whereas last season it's sort of the players that were consistent all the way through, and we're not seeing that. So I need to address it quickly. But I'm probably going to get that.
Believe it, you can turn it around. It's been doable. I think there was last year.
It's just the 14 million quid to put Haaland in, and then get.
That's what. There's a thing you can use. You could wildcard and change it, or you could use a free hit for a weekend. You get 2 a year this year, so worth using.
Maybe.
I don't think there's any double game weeks before the new year, to be fair. So. But yeah.
No, I need to improve. I know it's like I said, it's like my prediction skills are not very good either.
That's it. We'll come on to the predictions of the next show, but I think we've gone through everything we can go through this weekend. So guys, if you do like what we do and you want to get involved, like, share, hit that bell, make sure you don't miss out.
If you're a Tottenham fan, comment and tell me why you're not shit. I'm all ears.
I know there's a few Leeds fans that like to watch along as well, so get involved, give us some shit, give us something to talk about.
Yeah, Man United fan, tell us why you're not mid-table.
Mid-table FC. But yeah, I think that's enough for tonight. I think we'll catch you on the next show. So good night from us three. Thank you very much, and see you again soon.
Good night, folks.
Bye.
Goodbye, folks. Thanks for watching.